Great panel for you today. We start at the coast. Randy Slack, ESPN Wilmington, at rslack37, because he's a huge Andrei Svechnikov fan. And Jeremy Greene from ESPN Asheville, at ESPN Draft Nerd on Twitter. Before we start talking about football, real life, Jeremy, last time we spoke with you, you were hanging out at your parents' farm, which had been spared from Hurricane Helene. So give me an update on what the day-to-day is up in your neck of the woods.
It's still tough. We've still got we're getting by day. You know, we were in Charlotte with Luke Combs for the concert for Carolinas. That was a sight to behold.
Yeah.
The number of people that have stepped up to show up here. And we've had power crews from Canada. We've had logging companies from West Virginia. It's just been a sight to behold, watching people come together to try to get the community back. And it's not normal by any stretch.
Right.
But it's getting better. And that's all we could really ask for.
All right. It's obviously still not recognizable to those of you who live there. But what are the roads like? How many roads are still impassable?
You've got some that are on side. They're more side streets. You've obviously got the issues out on 40 going into Tennessee.
Right.
In terms of the day-to-day, most of the roads, at least the ones that I travel on, I live on the north side.
Okay.
So I don't really see as much of that anymore. There's still some tough roads up by past my parents' house. But for the most part, the roads are getting closer to where they're supposed to be. Most people have power. Most people have water. The water's still not drinkable,
right?
Which is it's weird when you flush your toilet and it comes up not watercolor. That's bizarre, and you don't really ever get used to that. It still catches me, and we've been doing this for 3 weeks now.
Our last one about this. I mean, I could talk to you about this for 20 minutes, but last one about this. What about how many businesses are still not open? I'm going to guess most, but what is there for that would help you lead just anything resembling a normal life?
Most of the businesses are open outside of individual areas. Biltmore Village was, in terms of businesses, that was one of the worst spots. So they're all still closed. But you know, we've got restaurants that are coming back open. I've been able to go to a couple bars to feel a little normal.
Okay.
I stopped and got a quarter pounder the other day.
Look at you.
They did give me a water because we can't make soda or sweet tea.
Right.
I would give $500 for a gallon of Bojangles sweet tea right now.
All right, now I know.
I'm going down the mountain this weekend. My best friend lives at Clemson, and we're going to hit that up, and I'm going to drink my weight in sweet tea.
I've got like 5 half gallons of sweet tea in our garage refrigerator because I can't stand it. So
sweet tea is one of those things. When I've left, I mean, I've traveled all over the country, and I go to places that don't have sweet tea, and within 2 or 3 days, I'm going, I need a fix, and we're on like week 5.
Gosh,
all right. It's just one of those first world problems. We got people going through so much bad stuff, but and then I'll get off this topic, I promise. We've had so many people that have done so many good things. Business owners. Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions just sent a tractor-trailer load of materials here from Detroit. He went to AC Reynolds here in Asheville. And he's done great things. Luke Combs, the Teppers, Victoria and I were talking last night of the behind-the-scenes of what David Tepper and his wife did for that concert. He bought all the parking places. Not a lot of people know that. He bought everything. If it was bought, he paid it.
Yep.
And then when somebody paid for the space or paid for the beer or paid for the hot dog, That money went straight up the mountain to great charities up here, and I just want to send a really big thank you to David Tepper and his wife and the Panthers and Luke Combs and Eric Church.
Final thing I'll say, and then we're going to pretend that Randy is part of this conversation too, is that it is very possible, because I had this presented to me today. It is very possible to be a terrible owner of a franchise, but at the same time be a quality human being. And David Tepper's generosity and his he may be thin-skinned as an owner and all of that, but his generosity and his humanity as a human being have definitely come through. So it's way more important to use your status and wealth for that than it is to be a good owner of a professional franchise. If we ever marry the two, that would be fantastic, because I think Panthers fans would like it. So we should start with the Carolina Panthers. Hi, Randy Slack.
Hey, how's it going? Real quick, Jeremy, you mentioned the tea. We have a list. We're doing a coat drive and supplies for people up in the western part of the state. We were told that toiletries were the number one thing you guys needed. If it is Bojangles sweet tea, we can make that happen. If you really want that stuff, we'll get it up there to you guys.
Yeah.
Toiletries, diapers. You and we've got each other's contact. We'll link up after the show, and I'll see what help I can be there. And we appreciate you greatly.
And I'll send the 5 half gallons of sweet tea we still have in our garage refrigerator. All right, let's start with the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young is going to play on Sunday. He's going to start against the Saints. So I'll start with you, Randy. What do you want to see from Bryce Young?
Anything. Literally just trying. Maybe getting to the line of scrimmage with any sort of time left on the clock. Like, just running this. It's so frustrating to see this team just feel like they're handicapped all the time on offense. I'm not asking for them to score a bunch of points, but my goodness, it would be great to just see more than one drive of being like, oh, hey, look, maybe this guy could do something one day. It's scary to look at their schedule and think after the next 2 weeks, the schedule for them gets hard. So I'm a little nervous.
All right, so I'm gonna reframe this for you, Jeremy, because I just don't feel like Dave Canales tried real hard last week. How would you approach Bryce and play calling this week?
Well, the potential of Jonathan Brooks coming back is going to help, because Chuba Hubbard's a good between the tackles running back. He doesn't offer a lot in terms of help to a quarterback because he's not a good blocker. He's not really a good pass catcher. And so I always kind of felt like the way the Panthers roster was built, it was not advantageous for a young quarterback. And it wasn't shocking to me when a veteran quarterback came in and could mitigate those things a little bit better. In terms of the scheme, I'm looking at Jonathan Mingo and Xavier Legette and Coker, these young guys. I want to see him develop a rapport with those guys. That's what's going to be here for the long haul. And I know Panther fans don't want to hear this. This draft is historically bad at quarterback. I don't think you're going to have a solution coming. I could be wrong. There's one that I feel okay about, and one I have a feeling his daddy is going to say he can't play in Carolina.
Oh, wow.
You can deduce who that is.
Yeah.
But I think you have to look at Bryce Young as, at the very least, he's going to be on this roster, maybe with some competition. So I go back to I've taught 3 kids to ride a bicycle. The training wheels are obviously going to be on, and I'm not going to let go. I just need to make sure you can get on the bicycle and understand that you need to be facing the handlebars and not facing behind them, because you seem to be struggling with that at times.
All right, so here's where I want to go now with this, because I believe that we have to get rid of the training wheels. I believe I don't care if he's unsuccessful. What we saw last week in trying to manage the game for Bryce and give him stuff he is, and I'm using air quotes here, comfortable with, didn't work. It made your offense look absolutely dysfunctional and impossible to implement. You weren't going to pick up a first down doing what they were doing. The successful plays gained a yard, so there was just nowhere to go. The first drive looked normal because they just acted like a normal football team. The first drive looked right. I thought there were plays that they could have made down the field later in the game. I think Xavier Liggett didn't try to catch that go route down the left sideline. I thought it was a little overthrown, but it wasn't gross. I've seen Garrett Wilson would have tried to catch it. So I want to see him just play normal offense. And if Bryce ain't good at it, then Bryce ain't good at it. But try. I also want to see him roll out. So back to you with this, Jeremy. Does that make any sense to you?
It does. The problem I've had with the way they've treated Bryce Young is that it almost feels like you believe in him so little that you don't want to give him anything. And there are some guys that you got to build the confidence up. And giving him, you got to understand, or at least from my perspective, you got to look at his subconscious here. Of Andy Dalton is, from a sheer talent standpoint, 20% of what Bryce Young is. But then he looks at what Andy Dalton gets and what they put on his plate.
Right.
And it's so much more significant than what they gave Bryce. And you look at your boss and go, you just don't believe in me in any way. And so I think he's slightly broken in his head. The way to do that is stop trying to make him Baker Mayfield. I understand you were successful with Baker. I understand you were successful with Geno Smith. He's not either of those guys. He is, I believe, can be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. I've never wavered on that.
Yep.
He just wasn't as close as we thought he was.
No, he ends up being a project. Randy, based on the way Jeremy started that response, it sounded to me like he was getting to where I am. I don't know if you pay attention at all when my show airs on ESPN Wilmington. I'm sure you're napping. You might nap to the show for all I know. But I have contended that Dave Canales acts like somebody who's been out to prove that Bryce can't play, not that he could. And the way they have treated this past game last week was, we're going to show that he can't play in the league. Is that tinfoil hat stuff?
No, I wonder, did they hire Dave Canales to do? Because I thought that they were bringing in a quarterback coach specifically to make the quarterback they took, the investment they took, to make it worthwhile. It feels like to me that's not what Dave Canales is trying to do, which, by the way, if the guy stinks, then the guy stinks.
Right.
But they didn't play him in the preseason. They're like, oh, no, he's the starter, and then immediately he's not, and then Andy has a terrible game, and it takes a literal car wreck, not one on the field, but one on the actual roads for this to be like, okay, let's give this guy another shot. Like, why did you hire Dave Canales if you weren't going to – if it wasn't to make Bryce better? Because if it wasn't for that, then why didn't you hire a Mike Vrabel or somebody else? You hired a quarterback guy to fix the quarterback, and he doesn't want to fix the quarterback that you have.
Yeah, I mean that's the way I have looked at it. So is there hope at all for let me just fold it into this. How many guys on their roster would you consider trading right now?
I assume you're asking me.
Yes.
I wouldn't trade anybody because I don't think there's anybody on this roster really worth trading. Like, maybe if you can get something from Miles Sanders, but I just don't see the long-term benefit. I don't see anybody on this roster that an actual contending team would go, man, I need to get that guy on my team. Like, who is that guy? Johnny Hecker? Like, who are you getting off of the Carolina Panthers to make your playoff team better?
Hecker is a worse quarterback. Yeah, Hecker's a worse passer than Bryce. The only guy who could honestly bring you something would be J.C. Horn. I would consider trading him personally because I don't think Horn is one of those cornerbacks, but I think he can help a team, a contending team, as a second corner. Jeremy, would you trade JC?
I would, but I would know if I'm Dan Morgan that he's probably going to go to a good team, and the one that I'm specifically thinking of is Denver as their 2, and he's going to look really good, and it's going to make you look really bad. The one that I would – Jadeveon Clowney won't be on this team by 5 o'clock on Tuesday. I have a funny feeling he's going to be a Detroit Lion because they want any pass rusher, and there are still about 8 people in this world that believe Jadeveon Clowney is one of those because he once killed a running back at Michigan like what feels like 25 years ago.
Right, that wasn't there was no blocking on that play. It's a great play.
It's really not that hard to obliterate somebody if the entire offensive line goes, "Don't touch him." That could have made me look like an elite pass rusher, and if I played with 4-year-olds, that's probably how it would look, but I digress. He's the only one I see that I think has value, and when I say value, I'm talking conditional 6th-round pick.
Right.
But, I want to see young guys because I adhere to the Brad Holmes theory that I've watched Detroit, which is every year I've got to find 15 new guys that play a role. In Carolina, I currently see about 6 that I feel like would play the role they're currently in on a good team. Mm-hmm. Jalen Coker is getting closer to that for me because I think he actually is pretty good.
Yeah, I like Jalen Coker.
Yeah.
And he made the catch Xavier Legette wouldn't try.
And then you go down the rabbit hole with Jonathan Brooks and trying to get something out of DJ Johnson. And if you can just start filling holes and then go into the offseason with the mindset of we've got dollars that we're going to go get guys, we know what they are, and then we're going to do it again with another draft class. That's how you come out of this. The good thing is Atlanta's on about a 2-year window. Tampa Bay's window, I feel like, has been painted shut, but I also said that 2 years ago.
Right.
And New Orleans is, without a doubt, the most hopeless franchise in the NFL. So it's not like the competition's going to get that much better over the next handful of years.
All right, we're going to close on this. And by the way, if I were the Panthers, I would not be drafting a quarterback in this draft. If I had the first pick, I would take Travis Hunter twice.
Yes. I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you take a quarterback in this class, you did it wrong.
Yeah, but that would be on brand for the Panthers. All right, Randy Slack, ESPN Wilmington at rslack37. I am asking you this question, but it really is for both of you. Okay. The Cincinnati Bengals are 3-5. The New York Jets are 3-6. It's perfect. We have a Bengals fan and a Jets fan here today. It's just perfect. Which of those two teams is more likely to be in the playoffs?
The team most likely to be in the playoffs of those two is the Jets because the Bengals have to play Baltimore again. They have to play Pittsburgh twice. Cleveland now has a quarterback, so they're going to be decent. Also, the Bengals can't get out of their own way. They're convinced that they're a good team, even though we're halfway through the season and they're 3-5. If you're a good team, then you would be a good team. It's fitting that them and the Cowboys are playing in that Simpsons game because both of those teams are absolutely cartoons, and it's just going to be miserable. So, yeah, I'm going with the Jets.
That is. You've watched the Jets, right?
Yeah, you know the Bengals are 1-6 now 1-7 without T. Higgins, and he's questionable. And this is maybe one of the only games they could potentially win. And honestly, I'm not sure if they will. So,
I think
have you watched the Bengals?
I have. I have.
They're unbelievably maddening.
Just good enough to lose. If the Bengals and Jets played on a neutral field, I think the Bengals would be a touchdown favorite. Jeremy, what is the correct answer to that question? Randy, you're probably right. 3-6 Jets, 3-5 Bengals. Who's more likely to make the playoffs?
I do love that Randy gave the contrite answer and said my team, and I will respond in kind by giving the correct answer, which is also my team. Because unlike the Bengals, the Jets, I think, play a cooking school. I think there's a Girl Scout troop. There may be a group of nuns on their schedule. I've never in my life seen an NFL team play a MAC schedule, but the Jets somehow get to do that.
Yep.
I'll also tell you a little tidbit that I did not know until this morning. The last 5 years, a team that started 3-6 has made the playoffs every single year, and the Jets are going to make it 6.
All right.
They will be the 7th playoff team in the AFC, mainly because the AFC is bad.
It's funny. I actually think I'm not sure the best teams aren't in the AFC. Johnson and Wales is next on the Jets schedule. It's strangely enough at Arizona, home against the Colts, the bye week. Here's the thing. I think the Jets are bad. I think the Jets are fundamentally, incredibly flawed, really on both sides of the ball. I think the Bengals are a better team, but I think you might both be right. But I think the answer really is neither. I don't think either team will be in the playoffs. I think the Jets finish.
By the way,
what?
Wilson was out of bounds. Like, the shin's not a body part. His knee fell out of bounds. The catch.
The shin is a body part.
Okay, so if his heel hits and then his foot hits, that counts as a foot. That's out of bounds. If your shin doesn't have a joint, your knee hits, that's part of the leg, you're out of bounds. Like, that's how that works.
Here's
like,
a better one for you, Randy. Here's a better one for you. I know you're a comedian, so here, work with me on this. Let's just say you're a wide receiver and you only had 1 foot.
Okay.
Could you catch the ball in the middle of the field and hop?
George Pickens couldn't.
Right, so you couldn't.
He landed twice.
You can never be in bounds. You just have to fall onto the ground.
If you fall on your butt, you do. If your knee hits, you do. His knee landed out of bounds. You don't bend at the middle of your shin unless it's like Sid Vicious in that one pay-per-view from like the 1990s. But
talk to me about Joe Theismann right now. Talk to me about Joe Theismann.
I'm glad they called it, but he was out of bounds.
And Adam, you were talking about the Jets. The Jets are like you built a zoo and you have 53 of the most beautiful cats in the world, and they're so talented and they do all of the things you could ever want. And you got the trainer on Craigslist, and he didn't have any of the qualifications that you thought he did.
That is Aaron Rodgers right now.
I love the talent of this team. But, man, they are badly coached.
They are horribly coached. They really are horribly coached. It became very obvious. Randy Slack and Jeremy Greene. Guys, I appreciate your time. Jeremy, best of luck with everything. Hit us up, all right?
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you very much. That's Randy Slack at rslack37. Jeremy Greene at ESPN Draft Nerd here on the Adam Gold Show. It was always going to go weird.